Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Too loud. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. It overpowers this mic. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnuvad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Satara Sata Shri Srimad The Divine Grace of Shana Vinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki ISKCON Boundary Chai Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki BBT Boundary Chai Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Save for the whole world is Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Astatara Sata Shri Srimad The Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Prabhupada Ki Granta Raj Srimad Bhāgavatam Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda Ki Go Premanandi All glories to some of the devotees All glories to some of the devotees All glories to some of the devotees All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga and Srila Prabhupada. And I need either a black pillow or that green pillow next to you. You need to for some. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Keeps the legs from getting cramped. Continued reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita. The reason this can't be too loud is because then it overpowers this mic on the online. So this is additional pastimes. Very nicely compiled by Hamsarūpa Maharaj for the continued remembrance of Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. And this chapter is titled A Visit to Boston. Is that your Prabhupada today?
Yeah.
Very good. As the time grew nearer for Prabhupada's arrival, Hamsarūpa, Pradyumna, and Jadharani arranged for his living accommodation. When they wrote to Prabhupada in New York, candidly telling him what they had and asking if it was good enough, he replied that he didn't mind walking the 9 blocks from the storefront to the house as long as there were no hills. And he didn't mind how many devotees stayed with him at the apartment, but he must have a separate, silent place. As for college lecture engagements, he said, whether they were big or small, he was always prepared to serve. Probably you are making fine arrangements, he wrote. Many will come to the temple to hear me. So in that case, I must come. May 1st, 1968. The first devotee to meet Prabhupada in Boston was Jadharani. Walking forward at the airport with a flower garland for her spiritual master. As they rode in a taxi together back to the temple, Prabhupada asked Jadharani about her painting. She complained that in preparing for his visit, she had to sew material for the altar, put up curtains, make posters, and post them all over the city because the men in the temple were working at their office jobs. Consequently, she hadn't been able to do her real service of painting. Don't worry, Prabhupada said, I won't stay long. The taxi stopped at Prabhupada's house on Hester Street. It was a 2-story building, the first floor being Prabhupada's apartment. Upstairs were some Boston University students who had agreed to play their music softly while the Swami was visiting. Their motorcycles were parked beside the house. Walking slowly up the wooden stairs and across the front porch, Prabhupada entered his apartment. Prabhupada found Hamsarūpa in the kitchen, standing over the stove cooking. Hamsarūpa offered obeisances and immediately returned to his cooking, apologizing that he hadn't been able to meet Swamiji at the airport. He had 3 burners going at once, and he appeared both very happy and very nervous. What are you cooking? Prabhupada asked. Sweet rice, halva, puris, and a vegetable. Hamsarūpa replied, stirring the sweet rice and watching over the other preparation as he spoke. It was more like the Sunday feast than Swamiji's daily fare of rice, dal, and chapatis. But these rich dishes were all Hamsarūpa knew how to cook. Prabhupada smiled. Looking around the kitchen, he saw against the window a poster. The spiritual master of the Holy Name is coming to Boston. It was a photo of Swamiji with a list of speaking engagements at various universities. As Prabhupada read it, his face brightened. You have given me a full month's engagement, he said. Then he walked leisurely out of the kitchen, leaving Hamsarūpa anxiously trying to hurry lunch without burning anything. Prabhupada entered his room and took a seat at the low desk, leaning his back against the pillow. Why don't you take some rest now, Jadharani suggested. I rested on the plane, Prabhupada replied. Well, Jadharani persisted, you could rest some more. Prabhupada turned his head slightly away from her and said softly, I am not meant for resting all day and night. Prabhupada asked to see Hamsarūpa. Sundar went to fetch him, but he returned saying that Hamsarūpa couldn't come. He was too busy cooking. When Prabhupada's lunch finally arrived, the devotee in his room excused themselves and left Prabhupada alone. Most of the devotees, including several guests and visitors from New York, having stayed up all night preparing Swamiji's apartment, fell asleep on the floor in various rooms throughout the apartment. Prabhupada could hear their snoring, and after finishing his lunch, he went out and looked from room to room without waking anyone. In the living room, he sat down on the couch, and soon the devotees awoke and joined him. Prabhupada began talking about Krishna in Vrindavan. Vrindavan, he said, is the kingdom of Radharani. In Vrindavan, if someone wanted to visit me, he looked behind him down the long hallway toward the door at the rear of the apartment, they would call Jai Radhe. Prabhupada called out loudly as if he were a visitor at the back door. And I would call back. He looked again toward the rear door, Jai Radhe. Krishna is very strict and Radha is very nice. A woman, unless she is unnatural, is very soft-hearted and very kind-hearted. And Radharani is not unnatural. Later, Jadharani apologized to Swamiji for foolishly complaining to him in the car. He had said to her, don't worry, I won't stay long. But actually, she wanted him to stay permanently. She didn't want him to think that his presence was an inconvenience. She had complained because she was in anxiety about neglecting the service that Prabhupada had given directly to her. Whenever Hamsarūpa gave her service to do other than painting, she would become confused about the priority. Prabhupada heard her patiently, clearly understanding the heart of her inquiry. The direct order of the spiritual master, he said, is the most important thing to do, except in an emergency. Prabhupada's first college lecture engagement in Boston was at Northeastern University. It was noon, and the paved campus in the center of downtown Boston was busy with thousands of students. Prabhupada, accompanied by a small band of his disciples, moved gravely through the crowds. At the entranceway to one of the buildings was a large bronze statue of a dog, a husky, Northeastern's mascot. Prabhupada became amused. Some of the older disciples knew that Swamiji was sarcastically humorous about Americans' attachment to their dogs. Because now people have no interest in God, he would say, therefore they have become devoted to dog. Instead of worshiping God, materialistic people have become enamored with Dog and considered him man's best friend. Some of Prabhupada's disciples had told him strange stories of how Americans pampered their dogs so much that dogs sometimes sit at the dinner table with their masters or receive their master's property through the master's will. Pausing silently regarding the almost deified form of the dog, Prabhupada scored an unspoken criticism of Western values. Srila Prabhupada ki. Shri Radha Govinda Dev ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Everybody knows that verse. Srinvata Swakata Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana. Hridyantaksto Yabhadrani Vidunoti Surit Satam. So this Bhagavatam is meant to be heard in that mood. Pure hearing. And this is reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, 4th canto, 3rd chapter, text number 16, chapter titled Talks Between Lord Shiva and Sati. Sri Bhagavan Vacha Tado Yatang Shobhanam Eva Shobhane Anahuta Apya Bhayanti Bandhushu Anahuta Apya Bhayanti Bandhushu Teya Janutpadita Dosha Justayo Tadya Dinupadita Dosha Justayo Maria Sanatmya Madena Manyuna Maria Sanatmya Madena Manyuna. Please chant. Shri Bhagavan Vatsa Tadayatam Shobhanam Eva Shobhane Anahuta Apya Bhayanti Bandhushu Taya Dinupadita Dosha Justayo Maria Sanatmya Madena Manyuna. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Tadayatang Shobhanam Eva Shobhane Anauta Apya Bhayanti Bandhushu Taya Dinapadita Dosha Justayo Maria Sanatmya Madena Manyusna Uvacha Ladies, Shri Bhagavan Vacha Tvadayatam Shobhanam Eva Shobhane Tvanadita. Taya dinupadita doshajustayo Baliya sanatmya madena manyuna. Anyone else? Sri Bhagavanu Vacha. The great Lord replied, Tvaya, by you, Uditam said, Shobhanam is true. Eva, certainly. Shobhane, my dear beautiful wife. Anahutaha, without being invited. Api, even. Abhiyanti, go. Bandushu, among friends. Say, those friends. Yadi, if. Anutpadita dosha drishtiya, not finding fault. Baliyasa, more important. Anatmyamadena, by pride caused by identification with the body. Manyuna, by anger. Translation and purport by Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The great Lord replied, my dear beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited. And this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with the guest because of bodily identification, and thereby become angry towards him. Please repeat. The great Lord replied, my dear beautiful wife, you have said that one may go to a friend's house without being invited. And this is true, provided such a friend does not find fault with the guest because of bodily identification, and thereby become angry towards him. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Lord Shiva could foresee that as soon as Sati reached her father's house, her father Daksha, being too puffed up because of bodily identification, would be angry at her presence. And although she was innocent and faultless, he would be mercilessly angry towards her. Lord Shiva warned that since her father was too puffed up by his material possessions, he would be angry, and this would be intolerable for her. Therefore, it was better that she not go. This fact was already experienced by Lord Shiva, because although Lord Shiva was faultless, Daksha had cursed him in so many harsh words. Om Jnana Tamandasya Garanjana Swakaya Chakshurmuttamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhati Grap Kriyam Yat Kripatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. It's very instructive for everyone in all ashrams. Lord Shiva is the most renounced. There's no one more renounced. So what to speak of being in the sannyasa ashram? You know, those who have this, we see sometimes in India, those who have adopted this path, following Lord Shiva, they're completely naked, covered with ash from crematoriums, and totally bereft of any bodily, so-called bodily consciousness. But this is not possible in Kali Yuga. Those who imitate, they're simply trying to steal the reputation of Lord Shiva and adopt it for their own personal aggrandizement. They don't actually have this demeanor. It is simply an outward superficial. So we also externally give respect, but internally we understand that this is not the true platform of renunciation. The true platform of renunciation in Kali Yuga is to engage in the Sankirtan movement. Yagnai Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Hi Sumedasaha. That those with good intelligence, Sumedasaha, they perform this Hari Kirtan. Yajanti Hi Sumedasaha. So this is the real sacrifice. So anyone, regardless of their superficial position of being a so-called sadhu or renunciant or babaji or whatever, if they are not engaged in the Sankirtan movement, then we should understand that they're not sumedasaha, but durmedasaha. But we externally, as in the nectar of instruction, it's instructed that one should offer mental obeisances. Okay? Mental respects. Not by falling down on the ground artificially, but mentally. And so sometimes we're also criticized that you don't offer proper respect. You know, we see so many people during Kumbh Mela, everybody's prostrating themselves as these Naga Babas move to take their special bath. They get the first bath. That's another reason why they accept this situation, so that they're giving all this honor. If they're renunciants, then why do they require such facility and such prominence and such recognition? Rather, they should be last, technically, because they are the. But that's okay. This is the unfortunate situation in Kali Yuga, that people do not know who to worship. All right? We understand that one should worship that person who is flawless, like it's described here. Yes, Lord Shiva is flawless. But sometimes because of his actions, you see that Daksha is misunderstanding. And so therefore he is condemning Lord Shiva. And in effect, he is condemning himself. Because if one blasphemes a great soul, Sadhu Ninja, we read that this morning in Harinam Chintamani, who is a sadhu and what is the blasphemy against such a person? And so this is a very important, one should understand this very carefully. Not that we pay more respect to those who are outside the society and less respect to our God family because we have developed some familiarity. What does they say? Familiarity breeds contempt. So one has to always be cautious in this regard. That he never drop his guard and ignore the etiquette. He may not think that, for whatever reason, that I should pay my respect to this person. After all, I'm senior. I've been in the movement longer. I am older. So many mental excuses will come about to try to justify one's own position. But there's no need for such consideration. Because Trinadapi Sunichana, Lord Chaitanya is giving this perfect contemplation. And then one should never think himself worthy of respect. And he should be ready to offer all respect to others. So then what is the question? We have certain protocol and etiquette, and yes, these things should be observed. This is natural, especially externally in the face of those who might come in contact with the devotees and might observe. Many people are observing without saying anything, just looking. How do these people interact? How do they respond to certain circumstances? So we're always on the, just like Daksha and Lord Shiva, we're always being studied in order to justify someone else's superiority complex, so that they can feel better than you. They want to push you down. They want to find some way to minimize the position of the devotees. But that doesn't affect the devotee. That only affects that individual. And Lord Shiva is trying to protect, because what is that famous saying? Hell has no fury like a woman scorned. So Sati, of course, we'll see later in the next few verses what happens. Because a woman's anger is very difficult. Once it comes, it's quite a bit to extinguish. And so one should take care in all his dealings in this respect. So this is on a material platform. You know, those who are devotees, they don't have such, they're not affected in the same way. At least they should not be. And if they are, then we can understand that there's some remediation required. One has to always take care to protect his creeper, his bhakti lata bij, by this chanting and careful attention to committing offenses, which can easily destroy the creeper. I remember when I was staying up all night preparing for Prabhupada's visit, we had to, because we're young, you think, oh, it's okay, I can do this. They call them all-nighters. You know, it could be this, it could be that. But then what was the effect is that the next morning during Bhāgavatam class or during japa, we're sleeping like this, falling asleep. So the benefit, of course, is that, you know, in those days, you immediately stood up. Nobody minded. And Prabhu would say, stand. You could hear it in the class sometimes. Out of the middle of nowhere, Prabhu was saying, stand. So sometimes he was indicating us, well, I didn't wait for him to say it, I just stood up. No sense being singled out. I was standing to Prabhupada's side on the Vyasasan. And without being familiar, one should study carefully the spiritual master's demeanor. How does he act? How does he walk? How does he sit? How does he talk? How does he, you know, all these things. How does he play the kartals? So all these things are learning experiences. And from that you could understand Prabhupada's unlimited experience in every aspect of material and spiritual affairs. And so it was a great pleasure to watch him. Very satisfying. You felt very comfortable and confident that you were properly situated. That this was the person who is described in the Bhagavad Gita, who is that sadhu, Vijaya Vinaya Sampanne Brahma Gavani Hastane. He's seeing everybody equally. It didn't matter if we were young or old, black or white, man or woman. He was freely distributing. So this very difficult. Nobody else is doing that. Nobody else had any inkling. How's that word? Inkling. Of what is love of God. None of these other yogis, you could see from their behavior. You know, they could speak something, but they couldn't actually give it because they didn't have it. You can't give what you don't have. And so what is the benefit of this society? Is that we have something that no one else has. We have the secret to love of God. We have the secret. Just like some families have special recipes that they protect for years and years, like Haldiram or this or that, you know, they're special this or they're special that. No one should know what is that secret formula, that special masala, that special whatever it is, right? But we have something much more valuable, much more tasty. Rasavagyam rasopyasya param drisvanavartate. This is the highest taste. And so who can estimate his fortune if he's carefully considering his situation? Some people like to identify with their college, like Prabhupada was describing the Boston, that Northeastern. And the mascot is a dog, a husky. Very famous dog, working dog, which is what dogs are, technically. They're not meant to be pets. They're meant to be engaged in service, like a horse or anything else. So all these colleges, they have reputation, but their reputation is nothing compared to the reputation of the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So this is the most prestigious institution And so one should take pride, but that pride should be reflected in his activities. How to keep that reputation. In the corporate world, reputation is the most valuable commodity of that entity. If the reputation is lost, the company is lost. Right? If someone makes a mistake in his advertising and it goes viral, he immediately loses, that company immediately loses everything. All their sales, their market value destroyed in a matter of moments. So we also have to take care and protect our reputation. That means that we have to always be carefully considering, not by some, how can you say, unnecessary criticism, but by seeing things through Prabhupada's eyes carefully. How do we preserve the purity? Because purity is the force. In this situation with Sati and Shiva and Daksha, there's a mix of modes there. Lord Shiva himself is the predominating deity of the mode of ignorance. And Daksha in his behavior is acting completely in the mode of ignorance. Right? And Sati is just an innocent victim, but she will also be victimized by the mode of ignorance. The mode of ignorance is a very dangerous thing. So that we cannot be pure if we associate with any aspect of the mode of ignorance, which is why we follow these 4 principles. Right? No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, no gambling. These are the pillars of sinful life. And what does sinful life mean? It means that which brings us, keeps us in the mode of ignorance. Because intelligence, knowledge can only be available on the platform of Shuddha Sattva. You cannot get it from any other situation. Tada rajas tamo bhavo kamalo bhadasya cheta eternavidam titvam sattvam prasidati. One has to rise through these modes. You cannot stay in any, and even if you achieve the platform of the mode of goodness, you cannot stay there also. From that platform you get material knowledge. But material knowledge only takes you up to what? Understanding maybe that there is a God someplace. Because you have enough intelligence to understand that this cosmic manifestation was not made by me. Therefore, externally, there is some greater power. And so people conclude that, yes, there is a God, but they don't know who he is or what he is. What is the constitution? So that is up to platform. But from goodness, it becomes eligible. All right? So therefore, we advise people that, yes, you please stop this simple activity. You read Bhagavad Gita. Because that will bring them to the next stage of understanding. Right, where they can appreciate that I am not this body. So that is the beginning of knowledge. In the 10th chapter and 4th, 5th verse, that is defined. Knowledge is defined as knowing the difference between spirit and matter. So that is knowledge. And so who can understand that? You can speak to anyone. Big professors, PhDs, double PhDs. Anyone here have double PhD? Anyone here PhD? Who's PhD? I thought we had some doctoral candidates. No? Yes? Okay, very good. But you know what Prabhupada said what PhD means? Yes, you do. Morning walk, Prabhupada said PhD means fully dog. Fully dog. He has achieved the highest in the material world, fully dog. Because they don't know what is what. Not our men, not our PhDs. Our PhDs are because they've come to Krishna. Look at how many PhDs we had. Sariputta, Swarup Damodar, others were there. Some are not there anymore. But, these devotees achieved the highest. Prabhupada was very keen to engage them in such a way because their association with the respective institutions from which they achieved this high level of achievement. They were able to infiltrate. And anyone who reads those books, that Sadaputta and Swarup Damodar Maharaj, like Life Comes From Life, the famous morning walks that were compiled into Life Comes From Life, or any of Sadaputta's books which are available online. You can just go and read them if you feel challenged to try to appreciate. Sadaputta's books, if you're not focused, very difficult to understand. But our PhDs can understand them, I'm sure. Okay, so read them and then try to disseminate the knowledge to your scientist friends or your similarly intellectual compatriots. Because then as a service, they accept you as one of them. You can preach in that regard. But for us, we simply want to remain, what is the highest conclusion? Krishna is saying that Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto Madhyaji Manmastu. Always think of me, become my devotee. Worship me, offer your obeisance to me. Thus you will come to me. This is a very simple formula. Of everything else, Krishna is distilling for Arjuna that the king of knowledge, Rajavidya, is to understand that Krishna is the all in all. He's the all in all. He's everything. And if one can just accept that, then his life is perfect. He doesn't have to make any extra endeavor, doesn't have to try to achieve any other material success, because everything will come automatically. Of course, not everybody accepts that or has that realization yet. And that's also a challenge. It's just like if someone is, someone who is in knowledge gives you an opportunity to engage in something which the result has already been achieved by him, but you have not seen it. And on faith only, he's telling you, no, if you do this, you will get this result. Because you have no experience of it, you're hesitant. But he has already achieved that success. And so you can accept it. You can, at least if you have some relationship, accept that this is a fact. And then you will also experience the same success. But there's some faith involved. Some faith is required. There's that interesting story. Srila Prabhupada relates how when he was visiting the Sri Chaitanya Mat, where the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya, which is where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had his, at that time, headquarters in Mayapur. His room was on they call it the first floor. Ground floor in India means ground floor. And first floor is first floor up. Is a ground plus one. So his room was first floor. And there was balcony also. And so there was a snake there below. And someone made quite a commotion because snake is dangerous. Especially in India, so many different snakes. They have this, obviously cobra is there, very famous. Another one is called crate, but in India they call it two-step. Two-step. It bites you, and in 2 steps you're dead. So they call two-step. So they have like that, and it's actually a type of coral snake, a crate. But anyway, there's so many different things. So I don't know what snake this was, but somebody exclaimed snake. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta looked out and exclaimed and said, "Kill it." And Srila Prabhupada at that time was a new devotee still. And he was very surprised. Guru Maharaj said to kill the snake. And he said, I had a doubt. He had a doubt. But then, in association and hearing Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's classes, He heard in the 7th canto when Prahlad Maharaj was explaining after the death of Hiranyakashipu that nobody laments, even a saintly person doesn't lament the death of a scorpion or a snake. And so then Prabhupada said, yes. So this is supported by Shastra. But up until that point, he had a doubt. But this was when he, again, everyone is entitled to his doubts, but he should not try to keep that doubt as an excuse to justify his lack of surrender. He should try to clear the doubt. Right? Otherwise, that doubt becomes a permanent excuse. Many disciples initially, when Prabhupada declared, not once, but repeatedly, that we never went to the moon. Many people, how could Prabhupada say, now I have to leave the society? What is the point? And so many things are unknown. And still people, but now it is no longer, how can you say, a conspiracy theory, because the majority of people now believe that we didn't go to the moon. And that it was simply a hoax staged for achieving some parity in the race to get reputational dominance at that time in this so-called space. And it worked. So, I mean, that's just another type of warfare, propaganda. And so it worked. And so these things are there. One should try to understand Shastra Chakshus. He understands things through the eyes of the scripture. Sadhu, Shastra, Guru. All right? Sadhu, Shastra, Guru. Chitte te kuri aika. These are the things that will purify one's consciousness and reveal his original eternal knowledge. Because everything, that chit aspect of the living entity is eternal, just like his other aspects, Sat and Ananda. We possess these things to the degree that all living entities share. What is that percentage? Do you know that percentage? 78%. Living entity possesses 78% the qualities of the absolute, but to a minute degree. But knowledge is there, and this knowledge, this timeless, eternal knowledge, is just covered. Remember, Tadara, Justabo, Bhavo, Kama, Lobha, Deyasya. You can rise through the modes of material nature, just like if something is covered. The analogy that's commonly used is you take a flame or a candle. This is before they had LEDs or light bulbs. You take a flame or a candle and you put a covered glass. Like when we were young, we go to church, we would light candles, votive offering in different colored glass. And they reflect brightly, and you see the color of the glass, the flame is within, and you see the blue, the reds, the greens, like that. All right? So we know that there's those modes of material nature. So the pure spirit soul is that bright flame, and you cover with the blue glass, representing the mode of ignorance, or the red glass, representing the mode of passion, or the yellow glass, representing the mode of goodness. But that's still covered, and you have to remove all of those glasses and to expose the original eternal flame. So that is there. Om Jnana Tarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya. My spiritual masters opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge, dissipated the darkness of ignorance, the darkness born of ignorance. All these things are there simply by this process that we have to carefully protect. And what is that process? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gata Nita. There's no other way, no other way, no other way but to chant the holy names, chant the holy names, chant the holy names. And so we have the everything solution, the all-in-one. People are always trying to sell something. as the all-in-one. It does everything. Is there anything that does it? No, of course not. But people try to market that, yes, that this car will drive itself, it will park itself, it will maintain itself. Now they have the remote, what do they call them? This vacuum cleaner, the Roomba. It cleans everything, and then it parks itself, and it empties itself. So it does everything. Right? Of course, somebody still has to press it. You could even set it on a timer, it does everything. But so I think they're very advanced that they have now a vacuum cleaner. But that's the nature of the material world. They pride themselves in these tiny successes. They're insignificant. But yet, that's okay. They want to feel good. We've invented this. But nothing, what is that invention? Now, if they read the description of the spiritual world, we were reading, Prabhu was describing this morning, one devotee asked on the morning walk, Prabhu, is ivory pure? I said, yeah, ivory, yes, very pure. Said, elephant alive? 1 lakh. Elephant dead? 1 lakh. This is the saying. Elephant is always valuable, alive or dead. Because the ivory, when the elephant is dead, the ivory is so valuable. All the kings, all the emperors, all their furniture was constructed of ivory. Such a valuable substance. And you can see also in some places how the ivory was used as a decoration and inlaid into all fine woodwork and things like that. And the same thing he said in the palaces. He said even in Dwarka, he said that things that there was no illumination by electricity. Everything was reflected light from the jewel-encrusted columns and floor and everything else. And one can see, could just imagine, you have some mirrors, they can reflect some light. But if you have everything made out of jewels, all this light is captured and then dispersed. So there's no need of any other light. So these things, science is lost. They can only fantasize about it and speculate about certain things. And that's okay. It's good if they have some imagination, because when they read our books, then they'll say, oh, how wonderful. Everything is described here just as I had imagined. People going from planet to planet. Now they're trying to go, what can they do? If they want to go to Mars, they have one opportunity every 26 months. Every 2 years. So even if you send somebody to Mars, the next time they could go is after 2 years. Unless you send up 100 ships at the same time, which is what Elon Musk is trying to do. But that's besides the point. The different devas, they didn't require any mechanical conveyance. They simply could travel planet to planet on their own. Now, just like the yogi, he has that city, he can disperse his molecules in any body of water and reappear in any other connected body of water. And everything is connected in water. The whole planet is mostly water, basically, covered water. I mean, we know it's Earth, but the surface is covered. So if the yogi wants to go to some place on the earthly plane, he simply has to touch the water, and his molecules will merge there, and then they will re-emerge complete in another location. So this is the original transporter everyone used to watch when they were kids, Star Trek. What did they say? Beam me up, Scotty. See, that's a mantra. But the yogis had their own mantra. That mantra actually transported them. They didn't require any additional help from some engineer. Right? Just touch the water, chant the mantra, go from Allahabad to Gangotri. Right? Instantaneously. And not only that, they could go from any planet to any planet. instantaneously. They didn't have to. The more advanced yogis, these are the siddhas, not the ones with so-called material bodies. They don't have. The material body cannot do that. So the devas have special bodies. Not subtle, not gross, but in between. So they can go anywhere they like, just by willing it. So it's very, and like I said, if someone reads our Bhāgavatam, all these things will generate interest because they say, oh, look, how they're talking about this from 5,000 years ago. But even if they're karmics, they like to denigrate, they like to say, oh, this scripture is only 2,500 years old. But who was thinking of these things even 2,500 years ago? Atomic structure. Who could understand that? They can't explain. Everything is here, the cosmic manifestation. Time calculated. How is time calculated? There's a formula in the Bhāgavatam. Come on, all you scientists. It is the time elapsed for the sunlight to cross over one atom. They call it atomic time. They have some way they've figured out how to extract that. But that is a definition in the Bhāgavatam. That is the smallest measurement of time. So now they pride themselves, but how long have they had atomic time? How long have they had atomic clocks? They weren't around when I was a kid, so maybe 20, 30 years at the most. Only since they've been able to put a satellite in orbit so that they have a geocentric, some GPS to connect to. So they can bounce off the Naval Observatory where they keep the standard of time. So if we want to impress, and of course we're here in Brooklyn, and 305 Scammahorn Street. Prabhu gave us some facility here to invite guests in. And we should want to impress them with certain aspects of Vedic culture, like cleanliness is next to godliness. So we want to thank again all the BYS boys who stayed up late last night cleaning. Have a nice kitchen again to cook. Every day cooking and cleaning. It's an eternal lila, nitya seva. Nitya seva. There's never a shortage of service. And this service is the most valuable asset for an aspiring devotee. Because without something authorized, there's no opportunity for advancement. And everything in a temple is authorized by the spiritual master. Every aspect has been authorized. It's like if you go to, sometimes people will try to, it's called, what is that called? Gray market. Not authorized retailer. You do not get the warranty. They sell it to you, but it was meant for sale in another location. But it's being sold here in America. It's called gray market. You get it cheaper, but then you don't get any guarantee. So there's not, here is the authorized opportunity. You don't get this. Something else may look like a temple. You can go to these places in New Jersey that are very beautiful, right, externally. But there's nothing there. There's no, whatever you do there is simply shrama eva hi kevalam, useless waste of time. Unless you're distributing a book and you're taking your service, because we can take our service everywhere by distributing the holy name, by distributing literature. But even in such big places costing millions of dollars, their purpose is defeated because they're not authorized. Why do we attract so many people? How is it that Radha Govinda have such an ability to attract the fallen conditioned souls? It is not just their external beauty to our eyes. Yes, our small, imperfect senses we can experience to some extent their glory. Because as our hearts become cleansed, we can recognize it's not material. The first time people see, they don't understand. They see some decorated statues. Because Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochana, they have no love. Everything we do here is uncovering that original love. Chaita Dharpana Marjam. And the more we engage in that service, the more we see Krishna. Prabhupada said, don't try to see Krishna. Act in such a way that he sees you. But that exchange is there. Krishna reveals himself. He reveals to those who are dedicated and worship him with love. And so we have every opportunity in this temple. If someone is thinking that I don't have to do service, or I can avoid the temple commander, and I can, somehow or other just be at prasadam at 9 o'clock and 1:30, then he's missing the point of living in the ashram. He's missing the benefit of living in the ashram. We're only here to engage in service. And the remuneration is priceless. Priceless. And the more you try to calculate a price on it, then to that extent you'll be denied the actual benefit. So one should be very careful how he sees himself in relationship to Krishna and his service. It has to be unmotivated, anyabhilasata sunyam jnana karma dhyanavrtam anukulyena Krishna sunam. That is the definition of bhakti. Uninterrupted, unalloyed, unmotivated. Right? So we can somehow or other impress that on our mind, that when we see that others are not following strictly, we should remind them very gently that you're wasting this opportunity of the human form of life, and you're wasting this opportunity in the association of Krishna and the devotees. So we should feel compassion and try to rectify that situation, for everyone's benefit. Because you see that sometimes a situation, like what do they say, that the common analogy in the material world is that one rotten apple can spoil the whole barrel. Because formerly apples were shipped in barrels, across the country by rail, even before the trucks incoming or so. But they would pack them, and then you'd open up the barrel after it got to a destination. And because of one rotten apple, the whole barrel became spoiled. Because it just spreads. So we have to protect Prabhupada's mission. So everyone has that responsibility. Lovingly to check himself first and then to check others. You cannot help anyone else if you yourself have some issues. So this is also, it takes honesty. When they say, samodamo tapaso shante arjavam evacha, it doesn't mean honesty like pound, shilling, and pence honesty. Yeah, Brahman is not meant for that work, so why is this word there? Brahma karma svabhavajam. This honesty is one must be straightforward in ordinary dealings with himself and with others. That's honesty. Not that I'm a thief, something like that, no. Arjava means I have to be, right? What did Prabhupada describe that a Brahman's life is like a white cloth, that any defect, like a black spot, shows up immediately. And he also said the Brahman's life is an open book. Anybody can look and examine. So we should always be careful in that respect. And how am I representing my spiritual master, in this society? And so I think that's enough for one class. I'm already running over time. And we'd like to give some opportunity for at least one or two questions if anyone has. Dr. Phil, I should have just called him before he rose his hand. Yes, Dr. Phil.
You said we should never drop our guard in terms of etiquette. So, what causes your guard to go down regarding etiquette towards devotees? How do you know that your guard is low, and then how do you bring it back up? Especially considering a lot of seniors how to keep the balance.
Very good question. Everyone heard it. How do we prevent ourselves from dropping our guard with regards to etiquette in relationship to our devotees, especially elder devotees? And well, Prabhupada commented, and we've heard this many times, it's a common saying, familiarity breeds contempt. So one has to always have that proper demeanor in his dealings, and that he's not being familiar. The seniors can express some familiarity out of affection, out of kindness, but he should never take it that I'm now on their equal level and I can reciprocate in that way and joke with them. No. That should be carefully avoided. And that one has to just know that what is my situation. That even in the household, I would never become insubordinate with my father or mother or some other elder relative. And that's just a known thing. Nobody has to tell you, technically. Nowadays, maybe they have to say it, tell you to watch your behavior. But formerly, this was everywhere you could see. It was normal. And it's in the Christian, they always have to say it, of course. And why do they have to say it? Because it needed to be reinforced. It wasn't prevalent. It says, honor thy father and mother. So that's one of the 10 commandments. Honor thy father and mother. So this doesn't just mean your father and mother. It means all elders in society. And so we have that also in Vedic society, that there's the 7 mothers. And so why? Because there's so many opportunities to become familiar and contemptible. And just like in a court of law, you can be held in contempt because you tried to be insubordinate within the framework of the judicial system. You spoke back to the judge when you have no standing in the courtroom. You cannot. He is the judge for a reason in that arena, and his authority cannot be challenged. And so if you try to go against him, you are held in contempt. And so one has to understand that this means, in our understanding, this is analogously compared to an offense. Contempt means an offense against the court. So for us, we have this sadhu ninja, this offense to a devotee, the same. We have different devotees in different stations, just like a sannyasi. Why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accept the sannyas order? He was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why did he do that? Because at his young age, having been brought up in that village environment, everyone knew him as Nimai Pandit or Nimai, as the son of Sachi Mata or Jagannath Mishra. They didn't know him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or they had no respect for him in that way. So, but in the Vedic culture, anyone who takes sannyas, automatically everyone gives respect. And therefore, to save everyone from committing offenses, he adopted this sannyas order, because automatically people would offer respect. Right? So, but we should not take sannyas just to get respect. Right? That's strongly condemned by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. If you ever get a chance, you can read. He had a paper called Who Should Live in the Moth? Very famous paper, very heavy. Only read it if you want to become educated and never commit another offense again the rest of your Krishna conscious career. Who should live in the mat? Any other questions? Srimad Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Sri Shivara Govindadev ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki. See, I beat you to it, see? Ananta Koti Vaishnava Brinda ki. Who is that?